I'm Holly from Keto Chow, and this is Chef Taffiny from New York.
Hello. And we're going to make another recipe. And this is one of my favorite things to do with Keto Chow shake mix or meal replacement mix, which is bake. It works as a really, really excellent keto-friendly meal replacement, flour replacement in baked goods. I've been experimenting with it and making all kinds of things. And this I call a better than Bran muffin. And if you want this recipe, you can find it on Keto Chow XYZ, right?
KetoChow.xyz. And you go to the tab for resources, and into the tab of resources you go to recipes. Recipes, you can look them up as recipe, just as a recipe, or you can look them up by their flavor. And today we are using pumpkin spice caramel. So we are going to make a pumpkin spice caramel flavored Bran type muffin. And this recipe is a little different. So as I mentioned, I use the dry mix as a flour replacement in baked goods. Sometimes I measure by the scoop. For this, I'm actually using a standard measure, 1 measuring cup. That's a little more than 2 scoops, or if you had the packets, a little more than 2 packets. If you want to go wild and see if it'll work with just 2 scoops, it may, so you might give it a try. It's something I'll have to experiment with, but this is actually 1 measuring cup of Keto Chow, not 1 scoop. That's a note that I try to make in the recipes where I'm using a standard measure versus just a scoop. So we're going to start with our eggs and oil here, and we're just going to mix up the way we normally would. I'm going to whisk 2 eggs and our avocado oil. This is a trade secret. If you want a moist, tender muffin that's like an American style muffin that you would find in in the morning in a quick serve place, a cafe, oil keeps it more moist longer and gives it sort of that nice texture that you're used to than using butter. Butter actually makes a drier muffin, and it functions the same here even though we're not using traditional flour. And this is so simple to make. I'm just going to do it all in one bowl. No need for extra bowls, no need for a mixer. I'm just going to whisk. So here I've just got my 2 eggs and my avocado oil. How much avocado oil is it again? It is a half a cup of avocado oil.
Half a cup of avocado oil. When that comes together, I am just going to add in, I'm going to ask Holly to just remind me of the order of the ingredients here.
Sweetener.
My sweetener, which is right here. You could use erythritol, you could use allulose, any granulated sweetener that you're happy with. Or if you don't like sweetener or you don't need it to be additionally sweet, you could omit this. It'll change the texture a little bit because sweetener holds on to moisture. It holds on to liquid. Well, with the exception possibly of erythritol. Okay, so that's our eggs, our oil, and our sweetener to start out.
Now we add Keto Chow, almond flour, all the powders.
Yeah, so now we're going to add our dry ingredients. So I've got my 1 cup of Keto Chow. It's very fine and it tends to just get around quickly there. So I'm going to top it with my other flours before I mix it. And so I've got my almond flour, my coconut flour, and these are a few different flours that are going to give it a nice texture that's actually like a Bran muffin, and also each one functions a little differently in this muffin to replace the traditional ingredients. And I'm just going to give that a quick whisk. And then I've got some cinnamon, a little allspice, or nutmeg if you have nutmeg and you prefer. And this is my baking soda. I'm going to make sure I get all that out of there. And if this gets too thick, I'll just mix it with a spatula here for a minute before I go back with my whisk. Just gonna hold on to that. You could do this with a hand mixer, of course, if you don't want to whisk it. Sometimes I just like to avoid getting out machinery and having to clean up machinery. I just like to do it by hand. So I have, I believe it's 1 cup,
One
right?
cup.
1 cup of unsweetened almond milk, or any milk alternative you prefer, as long as it's low carb. I've got ½ teaspoon of vanilla extract. I'm just gonna mix the liquids together first. And I've got a ½ teaspoon of apple cider vinegar, which is going to make this perform similar to buttermilk, and it's going to make the baking soda rise, because baking soda needs an acid to activate it, unlike baking powder. So if we have nothing acidic in here, it won't activate, it won't rise. And I'm gonna add this in. And the liquid will just loosen that mix back up again. And unlike traditional baked goods made with flour, wheat flour, I don't need to worry about toughening it or over mixing it, so I'm just doing it all in one bowl because it makes the cleanup easier. And this will be quite thick. The mixture won't be pouring, it'll be quite thick, so that's okay.
Well, it's meant to be a muffin, not a cake.
Exactly. And then, last but not least, I have a ¼ cup of chopped, these are Brazil nuts. You could use any nuts that you like, walnuts, pecans, macadamia nuts, or seeds, and keep it nut-free. Well, we have almond flour, but you get the drift. And I'm just sort of going to sprinkle those over. Sunflower seeds would be good in here. Anything you enjoy, or you could do a mix. And if you want to omit the nuts or the seeds, you can do that too. And should about do it. So I have a 12-cup muffin tin that is prepared. These are really super convenient. These are just silicone liners. If you have paper cupcake liners, or we would grease these really well with a spray or butter, just to make sure everything comes out. And then I'm going to use a scoop to just scoop out my muffins here. I'm not going to worry about filling each one fully. I'm going to worry about scooping them out and then evening them up so that I'm getting all my muffins. So I don't end up with 1 cup that's empty and one that's way overfilled. If you don't have a scooper like this, an ice cream scooper or something, you could just use a small, like a ¼ cup measuring cup, a large spoon.
I was gonna say the scoops are awesome.
Yeah, it makes it so much easier to, and then especially if you are tracking your macros, you want to know exactly how much you have. I mean, you can even weigh these as you do them, but at least you know you actually have a similar amount in each one, that they should be pretty close to even. So I'm just going to go back through now and just top these off. Like I said, at least this way I know that I have filled them all instead of just... You ever have that one empty muffin cup?
The half-filled cup at the end. And you're trying to scoop out the other ones to even them out.
Exactly.
Oh, never done that.
Me neither, but I've heard of it.
So you can use it with other flavors.
Yeah, absolutely. So this recipe calls for either the
Snickerdoodle.
which is really good in this, or the pumpkin
Pumpkin
spice
spice.
caramel, but you could use any flavor.
I'm sure it would be awesome with the toffee, with, trying to think of what flavors. Chocolate would be a chocolate muffin. I bet you could alter this to be whatever
Yeah,
flavor,
you could-
change the spices up a
Absolutely.
little bit.
I went with an earthy, spicy flavor because I was doing the Bran. So I thought that kind of went with the Bran feeling. But so I got one there that's got a little less, and that's because I didn't. Usually, I'm very vigilant about getting everything out. As a student once told me, people must be sad at your house when you make a cake. Because I don't leave anything in the bowl.
No scraping the bowl
no
for the
scrapes
kids.
left behind. So there we go. I'm just gonna smooth these out a little bit because they don't spread out in the tin as much as a typical baked good. You have to give them a little
help.
little encouragement. And then we are going to put these in a preheated oven that's at 350 degrees and bake them for approximately, I think it's about 20
25.
minutes, right? Yeah, 25
25
minutes. Because they're a little more dense, they take a little bit longer to bake. There you go.
Okay, fresh out of the oven. They are going to collapse a little bit.
Yes, so these are gonna puff up super nice. And then because they're eggs and protein powder mainly, they're gonna collapse a little bit, but that's okay. And they will be a little bit more dense and moist inside than a typical muffin. So if you check by inserting a stick or a small knife, it should come out clean, but it'll still look a little bit moist, or like a little glisten to it. That's okay. That's never gonna go away. It's not gonna look dry like a standard muffin. So we're just gonna allow them to cool down a little bit, but I think I can pull one out of here with these handy dandy silicone.
And probably burn your hands a little bit.
Yeah,
Oh,
no.
look, it's so cute.
I'll be okay. And it's hot, be careful. The texture will change a little bit as they cool down, so you do want to let them cool enough so that they firm up.
Oh, so good. I need to make these and take them when we go out of town to restaurant or to hotels. And you want the muffin that they have at the thing that's going to taste like styrofoam.
Mm-hmm.
Not this.
The nice thing is you can make a batch and put them in the freezer and just pull them out, and or and they're handy, and you can travel with them. You can slather them with butter.
Butter.
Cream
cheese.
Cream cheese. Yes. Yeah, actually with the pumpkin spice, this one almost tastes like carrot cake.
It tastes very much like a spice cake.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very much similar texture to a spice cake where it's a little more dense.
Yeah.
A little